So the original demo started with A. It's been a few years since A wrote those songs. Has your songwriting process changed at all in that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all evolved as musicians, and we've all evolved, I think, in our songwriting. I mean, initially, I kind of joke about we're a band of guys who played instruments that are not really the instruments we would play. So we kind of like I don't normally play guitar. Like I've written a bunch of guitar parts and whatnot, and played occasionally in bands here and there, but it's never like my primary instrument. For G, he plays guitars traditionally. So I think venturing into these new instruments for each of us was kind of interesting. And if you listen to the evolution of from where we were with, I mean, the first song we wrote was Rats Among Us, and the evolution from where we were to what we've done, I think leaps and bounds. And I never thought that we would probably be writing the songs that we've been writing today.
Yeah, I've been playing guitar my whole life. So for me, playing drums, this is like my first band that I've ever really played drums in. So yeah, the first demo, it's like now I play those blasts from the first demo and it's okay. But I remember recording the demo, I could barely hold it together. But yeah.
Yeah. Gee, I think you and I started playing our instruments around the same time. I think I picked up bass maybe 2 years before this thing became a thing. And gee, I think that you around the same time, right?
Yeah, something like that. Basically around the same time.
Yeah, it's funny, not to compare us to the Ramones, but I think I read somewhere once that the Ramones were in the same camp, but they didn't know how to play their instruments. They just wanted to be in a band, and they just picked up whatever instruments looked good to them and started the Ramones, and that became what it became.
Classic punk story.
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to the Ramones, but playing drums in a grindcore war metal band for the first time is a hell of an ask. Gee, were you sure you could pull it off?
No. I think during lockdown I had a lot of free time, so I spent a lot of time on my practice pad at home. But yeah, I was not confident that I could do that, but I feel pretty good about it now, you know.
Yeah, and I think we would kind of. I think I would at least drill GM playing it faster.
Yeah,
and then we'd constantly go back and forth on, well, are you going to play a traditional blast beat or are you going to play the what?
Oh, not this again.
The duck blast beat, but we're not going to get too deep into that.
Yeah, we're going to have this conversation again.
For the drummer, save it for the drummer podcast. Sickdrummer.com.
Well, we do talk about like process and technique a lot on this podcast. So, I mean, traditional blast beat versus like, are you talking like single foot?
Yes.
Double pedal starting with.
Yeah. So
the snare on the one, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I play single foot blast just because it's easier for me to line in my head, because I play with my right foot for almost everything and I'm not that ambidextrous. So it's easier for me to just like have the beat on the right foot. Also, I don't use triggers or anything, so I'm definitely pretty conscious of the fact that my left foot is not going to be as hard hitting as my right, so I want the blast to be loud, so I do it single foot. But obviously there's a ceiling to doing it single foot, but it's not like I'm going over 200 BPM anyway, so I think once I start getting to 220 or something like that, then maybe I'll start doing 2-foot blasts. But for now, it's honestly harder for me to try and do it 2-footed, just because you gotta keep your right hand in time with both feet while you're doing it. It's too weird for me. So anyway, that's my spiel. I don't want to get into a single foot versus 2-foot blast beat argument here.
No worries. I mean, this is the place to do it if you guys wanted to hash it out. But in terms of your songwriting, are things still starting with A's riffs, or do you guys all write individually and come together in the rehearsal space?
Yeah, that I would say 90% of it. And then a lot of times we'll write things on the fly. So I mean, it does start with a guitar riff, and then say like, okay, G, like play this drum or play this rhythm over it, or he'll just get it, obviously. And yeah, I'd say like maybe 80% of the songs I come to practice with somewhat of an idea, and then 20% of them are just off the cuff. And to be honest, I think some of our best songs are written off the cuff for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think End of the Line was one that we wrote off the cuff. Pretty sure.
Yeah, there was a few of them.
Yeah.
And as far as the style that you guys are known for, when you're arranging songs, is it a point to keep things simple and to keep things short?
I think that's just kind of how my brain works when I write music. I don't think in terms of very complex structures. I just think in terms of just grindcore format, essentially. Play this one 4 times. Usually, it's like play a blast beat 4 times and play a D beat 4 times, and then play that same blast beat 4 times, and then do a little breakdown, and then the song's done. That's kind of how my brain works. I try to step out of that and get a little bit more creative or dynamic, I guess. And I think some of that's kind of captured in our newer record.
So let's talk about that newer record. It's called Gowanus Death Stomp, and it will be released at the end of October through 20 Buck Spin. When did you guys start working on this album?
I think we started writing it pretty much right after we finished the other record. I don't think we had any sort of stop.
We did, but it was slightly derailed because we ended up doing a couple tracks for a decibel flexi.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and in fact, we actually recorded 4 songs that we were going to put on the flexi, but we decided to just put 2 of them on the flexi, and then those other 2 ended up being on Gowanus Death Stomp. But I think we've been working on it in total for, I guess, since right after, I guess, March of 21. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think once it all came together, we recorded it and got everything together within about a month's time. We were pretty quick once it was all packaged up. Musically speaking, it was pretty fast start to finish, but overall probably closer to 2 years for sure.
And we spoke a little bit about how your song or your sound has evolved since the first album. How do you compare Gowanus Death Stomp to Methods of Human Disposal?
I would say it's definitely overall, it's just it's a darker, more gritty sounding record. Production is definitely less polished, but I think it's definitely less polished. We play a lot faster. There's a bit of groove that we kind of added to this record, and I'd say there's definitely a heavy dose of Black Death that we dabbled in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more of the same. It's not like we're playing a different genre on the record or anything, but I think we just are doing even more of what we've been trying to do, right? So we have more, we're just trying to push ourselves even further into the direction we want, right? So there's a lot faster parts, there's a lot more changes. The groovier parts are groovier, slow parts are slower. It's just more, we're just trying to be as extreme as we can, with in the box that we've created.
S, what about you?
Yeah, I would say that this record is more, comparing it to Methods, it's more, I guess, bookended, and to me, it feels like if I were to be reading a book, it gets wrapped up by the last chapter. I think on Methods we just had a lot of ideas, and we were, we threw them out there, and it became the record that it became. But this record, there's so much thought and there's so much detail. With as simple as we are, it's a very deep record, and for us at least, it's like there's little things that I'm proud of that we didn't do on the first record. So I just think it's more mature, it's more focused, it's zoned in comparing it to the first record.
And as far as more focused and more zoned in, is that just a result of you guys working together for a few years?
Yeah, I think so. I think we kind of got used to the songwriting structure. Like at first you have to build that base layer, and then after writing the demo and then methods, we kind of established a baseline. Okay, this is kind of how we work, and we just become more functional and efficient, and then that gave us the room to kind of breathe and explore a little bit more within our parameters.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think with any band, the longer you write together, kind of like the better you get at kind of, riffing off each other and figuring out where to go with it. And I think this record is more of that, right? Like, we've become more comfortable with each other writing, and we figured out what we want with the music. And, this is kind of where it ended up.
We mentioned it briefly at the beginning of our chat, but Gravesend has some noise and atmospheric elements. I don't think it's correct to call them ambient. They're quite harsh and unsettling, but it's been a part of your sound since the first album. Who works on those, and what's the intention behind those?
Yeah, I mean, S and I work on that. We just refer to it as kind of our synth tracks. We wanted to complement the music with a soundscape that captures the anxiety and violence of and unsettling eerie feeling that you get in watching old movies about New York from the 70s, or even just like riding the train at night, or just being in a crappy neighborhood. Maybe there's an threatening element to New York. There's a dirty, disgusting underbelly to the city, and we wanted to capture that. And I think through these synth tracks and nodes, it helps overlay that. And not to say that it's not supposed to be like a node to any horror themes or horror movies, but try to capture the element of a horror theme in general, I guess, or not horror theme, or a violent theme. And I think that the synth kind of complements that.
Yeah, for sure. I think you touched up a lot on it, but it's just to create this stress. And when I think of stress in like say in a movie like Uncut Gems or any kind of the Safdie brothers movies, they portray New York. I know they make contemporary movies, but what they do visually and also with their music, recreating that stress that they experience from New York is kind of where the inspiration for the synth comes from. So like if you take that and you mix it with say like a 70s, 80s, even 90s kind of, like the dungeon synth world and all that stuff, it's kind of a conglomeration of those two worlds for me combining. And yeah, I think we've definitely made an effort with as no surprise, there will be more synth stuff on this record. We definitely made a conscious effort to make it way more stressful than the first record.